I'm Dan Demeritt.
And I'm Mike Cuzzi, and we're here to talk Maine politics.
Big news this week, Mike, that your party may have a nominee, a front-runner for the nomination for governor in 2014, Congressman Mike Micheaux.
Mike has formed an exploratory committee. All signs point to the fact that he will pull the trigger and run for governor. I think he enters the race as an extraordinarily strong candidate for the Democrats, very well liked in the 2nd Congressional District, has done excellent constituent service work over the years, and will have strong appeal to working class Mainers, both in the 2nd CD and in the 1st Congressional District.
I'd absolutely agree with you. I think Congressman Micheaux has been a dedicated public servant, and he's done well by his district. I think you can also point to his leadership in the legislature when he served there. He was part of the historic power sharing arrangement with Rick Bennett when there was a tie, 17-17, and one independent. And it shows an ability to work across the aisle and reach an agreement that makes things work, and I think he'll be a very formidable candidate.
Yeah, we saw Mike come out in his campaign video talking about his bipartisan credentials, trying to draw a very distinct line with Governor LePage. He talked about his environmental credentials, cleaning up pollution coming from the paper mill that he was employed at, and I think we'll see him really making a strong push to tap into the voters who have aligned themselves with Elliott Cutler, in particular upper income, educated Mainers in the 1st Congressional District.
Now, there have been some who've raised a concern about his ability to raise enough money to compete. You don't see that as a problem, do you?
I don't see that as a problem. It hasn't been a problem historically in his congressional re-elections. Mike enjoys not only a lot of support from political action committees that are out of D.C., but a lot of support from grassroots Mainers. And I think the Democratic Governors Association is going to prioritize this race, and Mike will have all the financial backing that he needs to be competitive and to win.
I think the real challenge now is for Elliott Cutler in convincing voters that he is the most viable alternative to Paul LePage, as he was able to do in 2010, very late in the game, moved the polls a lot over the last few weeks. Now with Mike Micheaux in the race, clearly a strong, viable Democratic candidate, the challenge would be for Elliott Cutler to hold on to those voters that came to him in the end and prove to voters that he is the viable alternative to the governor.
Yeah, Elliott Cutler's ascent in really the last 2 weeks of the 2010 election is going to really be interesting in this cycle. The question will be whether or not those voters were actually Elliott Cutler voters who are going to stick with him in this election cycle, or whether or not those folks were really represented support that was a mile wide and an inch deep, and were just looking for the candidate who was most likely to beat Governor LePage. So we'll see if he can hang on to those voters or not.
He won't have a free pass this time. I've heard from some leaders in your party that really regret the easy path he had because his numbers were so low, frankly, into August, September, and early October, that he didn't get the kind of scrutiny that a front runner would get. Now he'll get it, but the question I have is if Democrats attack Elliott Cutler in an opportunity, looking for the opportunity to drag him down, does it play to his brand as an independent, as someone between the parties, someone above partisanship? It'll be interesting to see how he responds because he's definitely going to be a target.
I think we're apt to see Elliott take a page from Senator Angus King's playbook, try and use any partisan attacks to his advantage, try and stay above the fray, and show that he is someone who can work amongst and between the parties. I think one of the interesting questions will be whether or not Governor LePage can really rise above his enduring level of support, which, depending upon which poll you believe, is between 36 and 39%. If that represents his ceiling, then it might be a difficult race for him to prevail, particularly if Elliott Cutler or Mike Micheaux become the real credible alternative to the governor.
Yeah. It definitely has to, one of those two candidates has to falter for the other one to succeed, in my opinion. I think the governor's numbers are going to stay close to 40, maybe even peak above 40, and if that's the math, then it can't be an even race between the other two. The challenge I see for Elliott Cutler, and you mentioned the Angus King example, is that Angus King is a unique political talent in Maine. He's charming, he's folksy, and he plays well across the entire spectrum, and people respect him. And he also had a track record of being someone who people trusted. And when the attacks came in from the Republican National Senatorial Campaign Committee or the Democrats in Maine, against Angus King, he was able to rebuff a lot of that based on his history with the voters and his likability. And Elliott Cutler won't have those things working to his advantage.
I think that's right. I also think that there will still be the echoes of 2010 in this race. I think the governor remains a polarizing figure, with those who like him really like him, those who don't like him tend not to like him. I think voters are going to be very wary of splitting the vote again and creating a path to victory for the governor. So I think this will be really a race to see who is the credible alternative for the governor come September 2014, post-Labor Day 2014. And whoever that person is, I think we'll see support coalesce around that candidate going into the final weeks of the campaign.
I think the governor will have a chance to talk about his accomplishments, whether the stuff that the Republican leadership did with him in the 125th, and I think the 126th legislature, which we're in right now, is going to end up being a pretty good legislative session for the governor. He's going to get the hospital debt paid off, which is a top priority for him. He's going to hold the line on Medicaid expansion, and while we may disagree on whether that's a good thing or not, it certainly works for him and his base. And he's a base candidate. He's a guy that's going to get strong support in an off-year non-presidential year election, and those people are going to be fired up. They're going to be working really hard for him in November. I
think Medicaid is going to be clearly an issue in the next election cycle for the governor. We've seen Elliott Cutler and Mike Michaud come out in the last day to say they oppose the governor's veto of that legislation. The governor's going to have to hit the campaign trail and make an argument for why he is denying health care coverage to 70,000 of the state's working poor, particularly when the state is predicted to save almost $700 million by doing so over the next 10 years. And obviously, if the state moves into a government shutdown, which I don't think is going to happen, but if it does, that is going to fall squarely at the feet of Governor LePage and legislative Republicans who have determined that they'd rather the state shut down than to seek pragmatic solutions. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, the governor, despite the rhetoric, I think the governor and top Republicans in the legislature understand that a shutdown doesn't play to their advantage. And if I was advising the governor, and I would make the case that 4 years just isn't enough. He needs more time for his reforms to take place and work, and he started the state on the path towards a more prosperous future. But we'll see if that's able to take hold and if that's something that people are willing to believe.